So without further delay, Raj, welcome to the conference. Raj is from Bikal, UK. He's the CEO, Chief Business Scientist. Raj, welcome for joining us. His presentation is how problem statements are solved with advanced analytics. Over to you, Raj. Thank you.
All right, cool. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for your time today. I'll explain basically not so much in terms of what obviously big data or what data is, but obviously what you need to think about when you want to apply your own advanced analytics or your own AI strategy within your company. So like I said, we know what advanced analytics can do. Having automated machines, having robotic machines, directing them, or for them to direct themselves, you need different types of data sets and also historical data sets so that you can replicate and automate your operations. But it's important to find out what it is that you're actually trying to target. Okay, having a self-driving car or having a robot for the sake of it is no good for anyone. So what we do here at Bikal is we basically help you with your problem statement. Okay, so that's not so much saying, okay, you have a bank and you have bank fraud, or you have an oil and gas platform and you want to reduce the costs. You have to break it down to an individual operation. So the IT people and the AI people and digitization people have to work with the operations people to be able to actually look at a problem and then define it in terms of not only its economic costs, but perhaps it's also its health and safety costs and other inefficiencies that may occur within that. And it makes it easier to actually operate on as well, right? So you're not having to deal with a big set of data. You can actually start very small and scale up through the organization. So this is basically how we work. Like I said, it's the experiment and scale model. Okay, obviously something that was stated some time ago by MIT. And what that essentially, like I said, means is you get your problem statement, you get the data behind it, and then you're able to actually have small projects, whether you do them internally or you could do them externally, i.e., give it to a startup or give it to a hackathon or give it to a smaller firm, and they can basically work on your problem statement. So typically, this is what happens, I think, in large organizations. You have your relational databases, your data warehouses at the moment. We're even working with some companies that have documentation. And once they digitize it, the data is not really doing anything that extraordinary while it sits on its own. So advanced analytics, what it does is you can apply different analytics to those advanced analytics. But again, if you don't use the right connection of data, then it won't create the sort of impact that you're looking for. So graph databases link those data sets within a large organization. That can be quite obviously advantageous. And we know lots of large companies still have siloed data internally as well. So you may have the health and safety department not talking to the operations department. They act in silos. So how can you reduce your health and safety costs? You have to talk to your operational costs. How do you reduce your fuel costs? You have to talk to perhaps your HR department, who will also maybe help with certain training. Okay, so you have to look at the root source of the problem, and the only way you're going to do that in a lot of organizations, large organizations, is by sharing data. And analytics enables us to do that because, again, you're looking at huge amounts of expertise in different fields. And the more important thing is the external database. Okay, so there are things now with regards to obviously social media, in terms of any sort of government data that provides a more reliable outlook on the outcomes you're trying to predict. When people when companies or organizations try to predict within their own data set, yes, you will get an outcome that will work because you've got that historical data. But if you don't look at the external factors, it could be the environment in some instances, it could be the events that are going on locally, and it could just be changing policy. It could be changing in the law. That happens as well. How do you model that so that you include it into your data set for that prediction? Okay, so that's something to consider with your internal as you make your AI strategy. So if you take the case of in oil and gas, one of the big issues around scheduled and versus conditioned maintenance. Obviously, scheduled maintenance is more expensive because obviously you're just doing it for the sake of having to do it. Compliance laws are very strong for obvious reasons with regards to health and safety and production, but also the way that scheduled maintenance is done is perhaps based around, it contravenes almost manufacturing, if you like, in the sense that just-in-time type scenarios are more efficient and more productive over a course of time. So how can you look at the oil and gas problem statement if you had to break it down? And this is how we would approach it. Okay, you've got 3 sections within the company. You've got your fleet management, your distribution, if you like, problem statement. You've got your container problem statement, and you've got your pipeline problem statement. Now, scheduled maintenance is needed, or maintenance is needed across all of those 3 sectors, but you have to break down where the actual maintenance issues are with each of those sections. You can't apply the same AI for scheduled maintenance on these 3 areas. With something like the fleet management, to do the condition-based maintenance, you're looking at the driver behavior as well. So that's an external data set. Okay, with something like around the storage container load, you're looking at obviously the amount of liquid or gas that is coming in and out of those storage units. And obviously with pipeline, you're looking at how much product or oil is flowing through those pipelines, and then taking the historical data sets from each one of those situations to then be able to use AI to predict when you will need to actually do the maintenance. Okay, so that's how the problem statements are essentially created within an organization. But you can see where there's also lots of crossover as well, where you've got the fleet obviously going to the storage. I'm being very simplistic in terms of the oil and gas market here, by the way. So where you've got the fleet and the oil tankers going to the storage units, there's a crossover of data there. And that's where, again, it goes back down to what I said earlier in terms of the graph databases. Being able to share those data sets between departments is very important in your early journey when you're talking about using artificial intelligence and using analytics. So when you look at your organization, don't take an overarching view. I think in terms of some of the cost benefits that you're trying to create within your organizations, you have to break it down as much as you can. I mean, even within something like the fleet management, you can break it down in terms of fuel usage down to tire usage. Again, there's a driver behavior element in both of those that will come into play. And you could even be looking at accidents as well, so that you can reduce your accident liabilities as well. Okay, so how do we then help, or how do you help yourselves in terms of looking at what your problem statements are? So in our particular organization, we basically use oil and gas domain experts. So these are people that have had extensive time in the oil and gas industry. They've worked on projects using obviously massive amount of data from the oil and gas market. Now we have domain experts in different fields, from healthcare to policing, through to insurance, through to banking. And so they basically provide us with a peer-to-peer understanding of that particular industry. So giving someone like Dr. Amir's experience, she's basically worked in Shell and British Petroleum for a number of years. She's basically looked at how the distribution of gas and petrol goes, and by having that exposure to that market, she knows how to apply AI to those industries as well, and look for those problem statements. So within your organization, don't just look at the IT systems, do look at the operational people. They will know where those problems exist, and they in a lot of instances will know which data sets to use to look at how to solve that particular problem. It may not be the data set that's directly attributable to that department. Okay, you may need to go broader. The other good thing with advanced analytics is, and again, going back to the experiment and scale, is try experiment and fail. If you bring in a data set that you may not be quite sure of that could be applicable to your problem statement, you can try. I'll say, like I said, we work with Oman Data Park. within their HPC stack, which the Nebula AI platform that they produce. They've got a virtual lab within that, and within that, if you like, environment, you can basically throw in as much data as you want. It could be video, it could be audio, obviously metadata, and it allows you to basically experiment and see if there's any anomalies that are being missed. So the ability to experiment, I think, is important, and that almost becomes part of your strategy in a company, to say, okay, we have to allocate maybe 1 week or 4 weeks worth of time into this data science experiment. If you compare that to perhaps releasing a tender or to release a request for a proposal, it's actually probably a lot shorter to try something within the company and to do that. Now, obviously, one of the I think the previous guest to me basically explained, obviously, how do you get the personnel and how do you build the education within Oman to take advantage of this in the future, even now perhaps. And that sort of rolls into the whole talent creation within Oman vision. So what we are trying to do is, like I said, with our domain experts, with our data science, is talk to the local universities, talk to the local technical colleges. But it's not just talking to the IT people or the AI people or the computer science graduates. You have to get AI or analytics understanding into all departments and all types of subjects. So it could be, someone else who's trying to train to be a doctor, trying to train to be, into finance, any subject here. It does need an understanding of how analytics will help that particular industry. And again, going back to the ability of, or the availability of cloud environments, again, being able to try these things and experiment with some of the ideas or problems that may exist within your company. You can do these very small hackathons within by collaborating with local students, which we are facilitating with, something that we are trying to do. So we welcome problem statements from anyone on the floor. Please feel free to contact us, and we will basically instigate some of that learning as well, and probably carry that work out should you need some help on that. So the skill set is important, but don't just rely on technical skill. Look at that operational skill. Perhaps they call it being able to sort of understand that particular problem statement within that part of the business is not always a technical skill. It's sometimes an operational skill that each company will have. And again, you will have some certain, this is not just a young person's game. You will have some industry veterans that are 20, 30 years in the industry who will know their particular industry inside out. So do rely on those people as well to work with your digitization and your heads of AI to be able to look at how to reduce your inefficiencies. And that's basically the most part of the conversation there. We've got some, obviously, details in terms of videos of how we do things. A lot of our ideas and technologies do come from UK universities. So we do have research partners within the UK who have developed and created a lot of their technology through research on actual data within the UK. And so those ready-made or those tested solutions are now available as well as part of the solution that we're providing with Oman. And like I said, we are working with Oman Data Park locally as well. And so we can help with problem statement analysis and even when it comes to strategy as well, in terms of breaking down someone's advanced analytics. So, but yeah, that's pretty much the presentation there.
Thank you so much, Raj. We want to take a break now. So if there are any questions for Raj, please put your hands up from the face-to-face audience here. Raj, Amar here in the audience is asking you to speak a bit more about the talent creation part, which you spoke about. If you could just elaborate on that, please.
Yeah, sure. So there's two elements of the talent creation. I think the world needs obviously more data scientists and needs more computer scientists and business analysts people who are programming Python, which is all important. But the other part of the talent creation has to be able to function within a organization that has actual problems. And I think in a lot of the, I think one of the other guests mentioned, one of the other speakers mentioned, obviously the high rate of failure of a lot of technologies and a lot of projects that are happening. And that was one of the reasons we have domain expertise. And I think within universities now, it's not so much just, keep drumming keep talking about what big data is and what AI is. It's a case of being able to go across faculties to say, okay, look, this is AI. This is what it can do. How does it relate to your industry? An AI solution for oil and gas is not going to work for an AI solution for a bank. An AI solution for a bank in Oman is not going to work for an AI solution for an AI solution for a bank in the UK. It is very specific to what the company philosophy is. So I think within the education, the talent creation, the hackathons, I think, are a good idea, because if the big companies can invest some of that time within the universities, and which we're trying to do. And like I said, we're happy to run those types of hackathons. If they provide those problem statements, we can definitely engage university students to work on the programming side, which is perhaps the more straightforward bit. But it's more to do with how do you actually get people within non-computing sectors to look at problem statements and how to use AI more effectively, so we have less failures. Does that answer the question, Emma?
Yes, Raj, thank you. You mentioned you work with universities in the UK, and you also mentioned you work with Oman Data Park here locally. Are you or Oman Data Park working with the universities here? Because we have some academic representatives, researchers here in the audience here. So is there like something happening, or is there a plan going forward?
Yeah, no, so we have had conversations with two of the prominent universities in Oman, and obviously COVID sort of restricted some of that momentum. But yeah, we are with Oman Data Park, we are working with universities for two reasons. One is obviously the local initiatives around Oman Vision, and obviously their move away from dependency on oil. We think there's a good youthful population there. I think one of the stats is that 80% of the graduates from IT are women. Whereas in the UK, I think one of the highest is 11% one university has. So that diversity, I think, is important when it comes to not only delivering technology, but inventing technology. So that's something we want to do. And then on the tech transfer side, that is something we haven't looked into. We have discussed it, but that would be in conjunction with the various hubs that are available, and also the initiative that Oman Data Park has around the virtual lab setup they have as well. So very accessible ecosystem is developed in Oman from what we can see.
Indeed. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, tomorrow we are going to focus the first part of our conference on careers in data and analytics. And as you said, women, like we've got a few women, like I can see Hajar here, who are actually focusing on this particular part where they could become data scientists going forward. No questions online. Raj, thank you so much for your time, and sorry for keeping you wait. I think we had a small mix up here, so apologies from my side.